and welcome to this week's episode of Marketing Helpdesk. Um, we're joined today by somebody who I've known for a couple of years now, Antoine. We've been kicking about, working together, trying to get things working in the background. Antoine, I've known probably a little bit longer than that through his LinkedIn influence, because Antoine's one of those people that when he posts something on LinkedIn, there's always a pile of common sense behind it. And usually lights up the my network. I've seen loads and loads of comments on Antoine's stuff, and it's always really valuable. So, first up, thanks for being a great part of the network, Antoine, and thank you for coming along to join us on this month's episode.
No, thanks for the invitation. Really looking forward to the discussion yeah, great minds and all that, getting on a podcast. What good fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I guess just before we get started in anger in terms of the topics that we want to discuss today, would you be able to give us a little, like a 5 minute whistle stop tour of your career and your history, why you are where you are now, and what are you doing now? To be fair, because you've changed over the last 6 months or so in terms of where you're facing, right?
Yeah, God, yeah, whistle stop tour. So, um, I guess at heart, I've always been a sales guy, right? So, at schools and stuff like that, I used to have my own tuck shop and sold cigarettes to the masses, which is not kind of what you should be doing, but it's what I did anyway. That then moved into kind of selling mobile phones and technology to kids in my school. And Yeah, I was kind of given the grace in the school leavers book of most likely to go on and own my own string of secondhand mobile phone shops. So I think there was always this thing there that was apparent for me, seeing value in things, and then kind of being able to show that to others. And went to university, did a sports and exercise science degree. Um, didn't really like university all that much, to be honest with you. Kind of grew a disillusioned with it in my second and third years. Had 1 year to go, ended up leaving university, and found myself working for a sales outfit. I tried a bunch of other things. I was driven kind of tip lorries and skip lorries and all that kind of stuff in the past, but went into the sales role and knew nothing about the company. Don't know how I managed to get into the job. They were doing like that group hiring thing. After the end of the week, I was one of four people left out of the original 20. By the end of the second week, I'd got my first few deals. And then after 3 months, I was one of the top billers in that business. So after that, moved into a corporate sales role in London, at an events company, corporate events company, and started to learn the trade there. Found myself a really good mentor. Started to kind of work my way up through various different parts of the business into kind of the more high value sales. And then after that, started to move around a little bit within industry, sold in a couple of different kind of verticals. So sold into advertising, sold into kind of corporate events, sold into research, for example. I was selling to a bunch of different job titles, VP, C levels, kind of marketing heads. And this was packages anywhere from kind of, 5,000 up to 200, 300,000 pounds. And then kind of, I always knew that I was going to go the way of having my own business. So I started my own business in 2019. COVID wrapped that up nicely in 2020. And then I embarked on a journey of going into lead generation, because 2020 was the year that obviously lockdown hit everybody. Field sales teams didn't know what to do. Companies that typically weren't relying on outbound needed to become reliant on outbound. And my skill set in developing conversations with people really came to the fore. And we started to work with companies to help them drive more opportunities through their pipeline. And then as of just under a year ago now, I left my co-directorship and started my own business, which interestingly I've labeled as an anti-lead gen agency, because what I learned in the last few years is that lead generation agencies tend to tell you that we're going to win you 15 new opportunities a month, or we're going to put you in 30 meetings a month. And for the most part, it's absolute BS. And I think that there's a wave of these organizations in the marketplace that set unrealistic expectations, take people's money without showing any kind of quantifiable results, and actually completely taking away what it means to do outbound, what it means to start outbound, and what it means to develop a process. So our business really stands maybe on the other side of lead generation, where we're a sales development business. We put into place sales motions that will make an impact in the market by way of developing conversations, helping to understand your market, what part of your messaging works, what doesn't work, iterating through data, and then from there being able to deliver some real key insights into who you need to be speaking to, what you need to be saying to them, and what types of results that can drive through the pipeline for you in terms and deliver outcomes for you. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a whistle stop from a
It
from a
does.
young man to a now 40-year-old man.
It does. No, it's. Do you know what? Every time we speak, Antoine, when we do one of these, and because like, we've talked together on podcasts a few times now, and every time we chat, I love your preambles because it just opens so like this. As you talk, there are so many things that I just want to get into, at like even above and beyond what we'd already set the nature of this topic about. So, like, I'm going to try not to
Yeah.
do too much of the shiny syndrome, shiny object syndrome, and dive into too many of those things because they're a talking point for
Well,
another day, definitely. Um, I guess if I think back to when we founded Marketing Helpdesk, one of the reasons I jumped at the opportunity to work with Phil is because, like me, he's one of the rare breed of people that have a foot in both camps of sales and marketing. He's a
right.
very experienced marketer, but is one of the few marketers I know that can close deals very comfortably and very calmly and knows exactly what he's doing. Um, Myself, like
Mhm.
you know myself, like I love a good sales operation. I love to get involved in the outbound side of things to an extent, but I've built a business around
Mhm.
marketing. I built two, well, we're building two businesses around marketing. Let's not say I built it, but it's still in progress. Um, and
Mhm.
I come across people all the time that have been on the receiving end of exactly what you've just described there, Antoine. And let's be honest, we get them in the inbox every day. So, would you would you like some more
Yeah.
leads for your business? Could you handle more leads, Paul? Or
Handle
really,
'em.
again, seriously? And I rail against
Yeah.
it. I really do, as much as you do, because I'm a firm believer in that long-term process and that building of consistent results that are highly qualified, as opposed to, hey, this person has downloaded your PDF and therefore they must buy your product. No, they were just curious.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
takes two or three of those to even start a conversation. Um,
Yeah.
so I think if I think to our audience, there's a lot of people sat out there watching this who are small operations. So they haven't yet gotten to a point where they've got the revenue or the capacity or the resources to have a separate sales and marketing team. And potentially a few of those are considering next steps. They may be in the early throes of how do we branch out into those things. Um,
Yeah.
and quite possibly still wearing both sets of hats themselves. So one of the topics, one of the major overarching theme for today's conversation is, and Phil, I'm going to come to you first on this, if that's all right with you, Antoine, is
Mhm.
sales and marketing. We've talked before about how they are part of the same thing. They are two sides of the same coin. Why is it in your mind, Phil, that we continually see people trying to separate out sales and marketing? Like, is it is it time we stop calling them sales and market? Like, I don't know. Like, do we need to keep still calling them separate things? Because really, that's just two halves of the same function, right?
We have there's a mentality that salespeople sell, marketing people don't, and that's very very old thinking. And you'll also get salespeople, engineers, um, product people. You basically get everybody in the company going, "Oh yes, that's marketing. They're the coloring in department. They make pretty
Mhm.
pictures." And well, whilst yes, it's funny when it's tongue in cheek and a company that actually appreciates the marketing department, when you have people referring to the marketing department as coloring in when they don't understand what's going on, and when actually the marketing is so data driven anyway. It diminishes what's possible, and the fact that actually, so on the inbound side of things, if nobody knows about your product and nobody knows about your service and nobody knows about your company, sales won't happen. Marketing is there to build the awareness. Marketing is at the top of the funnel. The bit in the middle, sales and marketing, all get into it together. And at the bottom, marketing, sales, all they've got to do is come in, close the deal. Right. The awareness is done. We've done our bit at the top. Sales can do their bit at the bottom. And we have to get all up in it together in the middle. And in the past, it has very much been one side does one side does the other, and they don't meet in the middle. From my experience, the first thing I've done, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, even when I wasn't technically working in marketing, I was working in IT, but because IT and marketing are apparently the same thing. I embedded myself with the sales team as quickly as possible, to the company. I mean, for a couple of key reasons. One, they had expense accounts. So if I was to go out to the pub on a Friday lunchtime, I knew I didn't have to put my hand in my pocket. So it was getting expensed. If I wanted to go out and about, I'd go out with the sales guys. But also that meant I got in front of customers. Customers are the biggest resource of data for marketing. Now, sometimes you can't get in front of them, and sales will bring that information back to you, but they won't bring it back to you if you haven't got a good relationship with them.
So I wonder then, and I'm going to bring this to you, Antoine. Bear in mind that Phil's huge on data-driven marketing done properly. And I know you're a huge proponent of really, really refining the data before you go outbound for sales and making sure that every lead counts. I wonder then if the reason that a lot of businesses see the conflict between sales and marketing is because they're being targeted on completely different metrics that drive completely different behaviors and require very different sorts of data as a result. And maybe if those metrics were more aligned to a common goal, then everybody's data would be working together and the teams would mesh better. Is that something that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think there is an element of that actually. I think traditionally when you look at what marketing's inputs are, it's they're speaking one to many. They're kind of trying to elicit emotions in relation to the way that a product will have an impact in somebody's life, the way it will make them feel, the way it will kind of help them to do better, the way it will give them better results, whatever that thing is. It's the features and benefits of a product and how it's going to make people feel, and that's marketing's job to make that happen. And then, as Phil said, it then comes through down the funnel into the sales, and sales are told you now need to go and close that. So their kind of metrics are all focused upon how many people have come in that you've spoken to and then closed the deal with. And I think that's where this fraction kind of happens, because you've got sales that are judged on revenue that comes in, and they look at it and say, well, marketing's attribution to this is just getting the word out to as many people as possible without having a direct influence on what the actual revenue is. And so I think that's where it leads to, oh, well, we're having the conversations and we're getting the flack when business doesn't drop because we're the ones not doing a good enough job, because marketing have done apparently enough throughout their kind of execution, so that when people do come in, they should just be ready to sign. It should be a salesperson's job to just kind of talk through and understand where the value is in that product for that person and then get them to book it. It's rarely the case when you actually look at a buyer's journey. And I think that that's what isn't prevalent in discussions between sales and marketing. I think you've got the sales people, actually what they're doing is they are compounding on the job that marketing does. And then when you look at it from a position of top of funnel for a small business that doesn't have marketing at all, and you've got a founder who's wearing multiple hats and having to do all of these different elements within the business, then it doesn't matter how much they do on marketing. They're still going to be completely drowned out by other people or other competitors in their field that have got marketing budgets and can be everywhere all at once in a number of different channels. So then it kind of becomes a conversation as to, okay, so you use your sales team as an amplification of the marketing strategy that you have. So that should be conversations to understand who's in market. If they're not in market, when are they likely to be in market? What are the types of things they most struggle with? Is this pain, is this thing that we think is a problem, even a real problem? Or are you looking at something else? And then that's the information that needs to be fed into the marketing collateral that then goes out to the target audience, and it all comes back around in this circle. Right? So I think that should be better conversations for sure in terms of what are the key things that we need to track as a marketing team and as a sales team, that coming together, it means that the metrics that we're looking at can be better kind of tweaked or kind of, better put together so that we have an engine that works synonymously rather than one that's fractured. And I think that those are the types of things that really make the most sense when it comes to designing your outbound kind of marketing and sales engine.
And that comes down to quality though. I mean, there's quality and qualification that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at stuff, we look at the end result. What do you actually need? Right. Okay. So let's say a company needs to make 10 sales a year. And in fact, in some cases, that's all they do need, because they've got such a high ticket item and high profit margins on it. They really don't need many. So it's okay, right, how many conversions does it take to reach that? Okay, right, it takes 20 proposals to go out to get to your 10. So, okay, right, how many sales qualified leads? And I don't particularly like the term sales qualified lead and marketing qualified lead, but for this, it's the easiest explanation of it. Okay, it takes 4 sales qualified leads to get to every proposal. So, right, okay, now we're at 80. So, okay, right, how many marketing qualified leads? Then we can start building, going back up and up and up and up. And so, right, okay, well, actually, right, we need 2,000 prospects a year. And for a small company with one person looking after sales, marketing, operations, HR, legal, product, delivery, 2,000 prospects to work in a year, that's not manageable. It's like, right, okay, well, we need to start looking at the qualification and the quality of what's going in at each stage. So can we increase the number of people that go through each stage of that funnel? Can we half one of them? We can half one of them, or double one of them even.
I think
we'll need substantially less going in at the top.
I think that's the problem though, right? Is analyzing the conversion rates and understanding why people convert or don't convert. That's like holding a big mirror up, especially if you're a small business, and understanding what you're doing wrong. And that's uncomfortable. And it's also quite hard to do internally, I think, without an outside perspective. I think it's quite hard to analyze that. It takes a certain sort of person. And that's why some people do really well at it and other people just muddle on. It's got to be a constant process of self-awareness as to what can I do to make this process better, convert faster, convert better, get more wins. But the easy thing to do is go, oh, well, I just need to have more conversations. Because then I can keep on doing what I'm doing. I don't need to change anything. We just need to have more conversations. But as you start to scale the business out, that becomes absolutely unmanageable. And I know, Antoine, you're huge on kind of pre-qualifying all of that information. You do a lot of account-based work as well, which is, it's a next level of data analysis all over again compared to what a lot of people look at, which is just that individual sales element. I wonder as well, as people start to build their businesses out, whether commission structure for salespeople delivers the wrong sort of behaviors. And I'm not saying commission structure is wrong, but there's ways and means there's a lot of variables in commission structure that marketing people don't have a lot of the time. But marketing people generally aren't commission based in any way, shape, or form. So part of me rails against that idea because it causes two opposing ideologies where it just becomes a blame game between the two sides. Well, we didn't convert enough opportunities because marketing weren't doing their job well enough. Well, we did our job. Look, we got all these downloads of lead magnets because that we needed to hit this many MQLs. That's all we're targeted on. Well, drive the right behaviors, I guess. Sorry,
I think it's a really good point. I think, no, I was just saying, I think it's a really, really good point. I think the old way of sales is, I mean, my sales career started and I grew up within sales by being commissioned on the deals that I won. But my passage into sales was as a full cycle seller. So I would open those opportunities. I would have a manager online with me that would help me close those first few. Then after that, you understand the full end-to-end kind of sales cycle and you run it yourself. So me opening up conversations, being able to gain traction within those conversations, being able to find a need and a pain point, and then being able to find a reason for why they needed to do this thing that I was selling to them, and then winning the money at the end of it, often on the same call or on a second call, calling them back. You learn to manage that whole process. I think sales today, which has partly been kind of, or maybe, you could say a lot of it is attributed to kind of the industrial sales complex of the SEP platforms out there and, the whole kind of predictable revenue kind of focus that's out there, which is to have everything kind of, fractioned off, and you have your SDRs booking meetings for the AEs who then bring in a sales engineer onto the call. And then from there, they construct out this whole big thing. And then there's the proposal stage and all of this other stuff that goes on, in that process. And that whole thing shifted from being, you are going to do a job where you take somebody on a journey from A to Z, and then you get your kind of commission at the end of it, to, okay, now we're going to kind of commission each part of this process. So you get commission for winning meetings, right? And that behavior to drive somebody to a meeting is it can be quite different to understanding how you drive somebody from point A to point Z to get them to actually buy a product. And so like within my business, I mean, I learned this in my last business, right? You can have salespeople, you can have them salaried, you can then commission them on meetings booked, and the meetings booked come through are still useless for the customer. And that's because the salesperson has this target of 10, 15, 20 meetings a month to book, and they're focused on hitting that target. So it incentivizes them not to do the job particularly well, but just to actually hit the numbers that they've got in front of them. Whereas in the business that I have now, I just pay people well to do the job that needs to be done. And they're incentivized on customer renewing their contract with us. So if the customer is completely happy with the meetings that they're getting, they're not going to want to switch that off. So they will stay working with the business because the business is producing the outcomes that it needs for them to reach their goals and their objectives. And then our sales guys are just fixated on doing the job well, because they get paid well enough and handsomely enough to get into those conversations and develop the right types of opportunities based on the criteria that we've agreed with the customer that makes the most sense for somebody that they would want to speak to. And then we can start to measure without that kind of pressure of, oh, we didn't deliver 20 meetings this month or 30 meetings this month or whatever arbitrary number you set. You can just focus on, okay, the quality of the meetings that you've got through this month and the quality of the people that you've spoken to. How does that look in line with what your goals and your objectives are? And that is a completely different conversation that I think many people are missing out on today because they're just trying to follow this predictable revenue model of X amount in gives you X amount out, which we've seen doesn't always actually lead to that kind of result.
All makes sense, and some really valid points there, Antoine. Again, stuff that we could probably spend hours talking about. I think we're kind of drawn towards the end of the half-hour mark for this month's episode. So before we wrap things up, I guess the last question I've got for you, Antoine, is going out to the small business owners that we've got, kind of who are our regular listeners, our regular viewers. What are the top 3 things that you would suggest that they'd start doing right now that will get them to the point where they can afford to, not just to where they can afford to, first of all, where they can afford to bring in outsourced support from sales and marketing, which is where most businesses want to get to, but that's a big revenue leap. But also that, I guess, will set them up for success when they do that. Because what I see is a lot of businesses that tend to do well, but they're operating in a way that means it's a huge leap to bring in anybody else external to support them when the time's right. And they set themselves up for failure, and it becomes a hard process. And that gets blamed on the outsourced party a lot of the time, when actually it's just they haven't really done what was necessary. So what's the top 3 things you would suggest a growing small business does to set themselves up for that point?
Oh, it's really, really good question, Paul.
Take your time.
Top 3 things. Okay, so I think, especially when I work on how I've developed businesses in the past, I think being able to document your processes is so important. I think that a lot of the time people will say, we just need to get 20 meetings a month, and then we'll be fine. Everything will be great. You just bring them in and we'll close it. And it's like, okay, so how do you bring them in today? Oh, well, it's just through my network. What does that mean? It's just through people that have been put in front of me. So do you have a process for going outbound from cold to your market and then working them through a pipeline to close one or close last? No, we don't. Okay. So that's a problem, right? Because now you're just relying on an outside party to build it for you, rather than having an understanding of what it should look like and what it should feel like for yourself. So document your processes, absolutely, I think is one of the key things to look at. The other thing is in actually executing that process. So we are all busy founders. We're all running businesses. Not all of us have a background in sales, but all of us need to understand our potential prospective customer base. And so if you have time to build your business, within that time of building your business, you should be looking at even 60 minutes to 90 minutes a day of speaking to people in your marketplace. Who am I selling to? Why do I want to sell to them? What do they need? Do they even need it? How are they fixing this problem today without me? How could they be doing better within their role with me? What type of achievements have they had without this process in place? What type of achievements could they realize with this in place? You're only going to get that by speaking to people. And the more of those conversations you have, then the easier it will be for when you do bring somebody else either into the business to do internal sales for you, inside sales, or if you work with an outside team, you can actually sit to them and say, these are my findings. This is what I've learned. And I'd love to be able to accelerate that with the value that you can bring into the organization. So I think, again, being able to actually speak with people is another key thing that people should be looking at. And I think the third thing is absolutely understand what data says to you. Don't just have conversations willy-nilly. You've got nothing written down. You don't understand the various different impacts for different people within different parts of the business and different sizes of business. What does the data tell you? And that will help you to be able to formulate a better strategy of where you should be looking to go to in order to sell your opportunity, in order to sell your services or your software or whatever the case may be. So those for me would be the biggest 3 things. It would be document everything that you do. It would be have conversations with your target market and really understand who it is that you should be selling to and why. And then the third thing, I think that you need to understand your data. And from there, that's going to be able to help you piece together a story and a narrative where you'll be able to work with anybody internally or externally in terms of how you can better develop that process and win more opportunities from the right types of people.
Solid advice. I love it, Anton. Thanks very much for coming along and for the great support that you've some action points that you've given for people that I think people can actually take that away and start working on some things there, which is always nice to be able to demonstrate that in a session. So thanks very much for coming along, mate. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Thanks for the invite. Loved it.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Antoine.
Phil.
All right. And thanks very much for coming along to today's episode. Hope you've enjoyed it and taken away some valid points. I'm going to leave you with a video very shortly that will walk you through a little bit about Marketing Helpdesk. And if you've got any questions or comments, please do put them in the comments below on the feed. We will be around to answer them. Obviously, you can reach out to us. Antoine's email and our email addresses will be right at the end of the contacts list after the video. So do drop us a line if you've got any questions, or a DM here on LinkedIn as well. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today for the webinar. Hope you've enjoyed what we've had to talk about and you've got plenty of takeaways from what's been discussed. If you're a busy business owner who's sick of saying that they want to do more of their own marketing but just don't know where to start, reach out and contact us at Marketing Helpdesk. We're designed to help provide bite-sized support to leaders and founders just like you who just want to get more of their own marketing done without making so many mistakes. Bit of strategy, planning and some accountability. We're there to support you with all of that at a price that won't break the bank and no obligations unless you want them. Reach out, Paul at marketing-helpdesk.com. Look forward to hearing from you and we'll speak soon.